They don't want us knowing our history. They don't want us knowing where we came from. Because if you are a person without a history, who are you? Where do you come from? As Africans, we are too busy running away from who we are. We don't want to embrace our Africanness. Why not? If you refuse and don't accept your Africanness, then who are you?
Hello guys, welcome once again to AfriPost. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great time. Now, over the years, many Black Americans have made trips to Africa seeking to find their African roots. And this has been done by many prominent African Americans. For example, we've seen Idris Elba, we've seen Steve Harvey, and many other Black Americans coming to really visit African continent to also acclimatize themselves with what Africa is. Because one thing you know is that the Western representation of Africa is such of a bad place. They present Africa as a place where only animals live. It is a zoo where humans mix with animals and they live together. But then that is not the case. When these Black Americans come to Africa, they find that Africa is the place to be. It is a place full of happiness, full of peace. Nobody discriminates you, and many other good things that come with it. So we have had other Africans also playing a very leading role when it comes to encouraging Black Americans to come to the continent and seek to really feel how motherland tastes. And one scholar who has been very instrumental in this work is Dr. Arikana Chihombori Quao. She's been speaking almost everywhere about the need for Africans and African diaspora to come together and build a nation that can never be defeated by white power structures. So Dr. Arikana Chihombori Quao has been very open, speaking about the need for all of us to come together and work to uplift ourselves. I came across a clip of her here speaking at a conference in South Africa. I want us to watch this clip, then come back and share our thoughts.
But when I went to Ghana, speaking at the University of Cape Coast, I stayed at a beautiful hotel. When I walked into the room, right above the headboard was a humongous photograph of Queen Elizabeth. And I thought to myself, now I am going to go to bed tonight with the shadow of Queen Elizabeth hanging over me. What kind of dreams was I going to have that night? I nicely found time. I called my VP and I said, could you help me take this photograph down? We shall put it back tomorrow morning, because tonight I intend to have good dreams. And I wondered why, since I was in Ghana, what kind of dreams I would have had I spent the night with the shadow of Nanaya Asandwa hanging over my head. I also wondered, why is it that in 2024, we still have the photograph of Queen Elizabeth hanging over the walls of hotels in Ghana, and not a single photograph of a king or a chief from Ghana? So it is the following morning, I opened my speech by simply wondering, why is it that the photograph of Nanaya Asantwa wasn't hanging in that room? And that the manager of the hotel was a friend and that we were going to have a conversation. Some little bird sent a little message. By the time I got to my room, there was a picture of a queen, a Ghanaian queen, hanging over my head. In 1963, our Pan-African fathers, at the invitation of Emperor Haile Selassie, met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to discuss the building of an Africa that spoke with one voice, the building of an Africa that was united, the building of an Africa that had a single currency, a single monetary policy, a single military, an Africa that should be, an Africa that was once upon a time. Unfortunately, when they met in 1963, NATO was in full force. NATO heard about the meeting that was getting to be revolutionary, a meeting that was going to undo the Berlin Conference, a meeting that was going to put an end to the exploitation of the African continent. That meeting had to be disrupted. So it is when our Pan-African fathers went to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, we had the Casablanca group, which was Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria. They said Africa for the Africans and African Union now. The other 33 members, having tasted power, they were the Monrovia group. They said, no, let's wait on this African unity thing. Let's go slow. They were the majority. So the Casablanca group lost. Year in, year out, the African leaders would meet. The issue of an Africa that spoke with one voice was tabled, and year in and year out, that conversation was passed to next year. Fast forward 2024, we are still going slow at the African Union. The question is, our leadership is fully aware of the pillars of development. Our leaders are fully aware of the enemies to Africa's development. And yet somehow they're incapable of addressing them. We know when it comes to West Africa, the document that African countries were made to sign as they attained their quote-unquote independence, the document that's labeled the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. On one hand, we are giving you your independence, but on the other hand, we want you to sign this document, agreeing to continue to be colonized. And if you choose not to sign this document, in my pocket, I have a gun that has your name. So it is that Guinea and Mali, they chose not to sign the document. History tells us that France moved into those countries, poured concrete into the sewage pipes, destroyed schools, hospitals, roads, anything that could be destroyed, they destroyed. Anything that they could pick up and take back with them to France, they took. According to President Mugabe, they even took the last pencil. This was done as a way of letting the other African countries know that should you refuse to sign this document, this was the fate that awaited you. Further down, we have more countries that tried to say, wait a minute, the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization is something that's not sustainable. You have to give up 85% at that time of your bank reserves, deposit them with France. Those funds, once gone, they're not coming back. All your minerals discovered and yet to be discovered belong to France, and French companies had the first right of refusal. Your language of instruction shall be French. Your military can only be equipped by France. Your military can only be trained by France. Now, give me a break here. Imagine you are the president of a West African country under French control, and your chief of staff comes to you on your first day in office and says, Mr. President, before you resume your duties, I have some information to share with you. You must give up control of your finances. You must give up control of your natural resources. You must give up control of your military. Now, if you stay away from those, you are free to run your country as you wish. What kind of a country are you running? What kind of a leader are you? And I'm going to bring that question to you. To this day, those African countries are still required to deposit their bank reserves with France. Now, the numbers have gone down some. They're down to the 50, 55, 60. But by and large, with the exception of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali that said, France, pack your bags and go home. The rest of the African countries are still subjected and held to the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. There are many other pacts and treaties that African countries were forced to sign that are still in place today. So enemy number one is the existence of pacts and treaties that we know they go against the development of Africa. But our leaders, for various reasons, and we know those who have tried to pull away, they've either been assassinated or exiled. So the realities are there, that if African leaders try to push back, there's some serious consequences. In spite of all that, there are some other issues that they also could deal with. We know the NGOs are nothing but wolf in sheep's clothing as they come into our countries. A lot of embassies as well. We have a few nice embassies. But we have many countries that are also just here to make sure that they continue to destabilize the countries. They make sure that the elections are forever interrupted, so they can continue to further their agendas within those respective countries. But also, there are things that we can do something about. You take, for example, our educational system. Why is it that we are still using colonial textbooks? What is keeping the Minister of Education from changing the curriculum? Nothing. Except just maybe the Minister of Education feels that the more they study European history, the more affluent they're supposed to be. Why is it that we are all fully aware that the loans that are being given to African countries, the loans that have been given to African countries for centuries, are frivolous loans that have been paid 1,000,000 times over? We also know very well, for those of you who have not read this book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, if you have not read that book, I urge you to read it. This is a former CIA who was himself an economic hitman, who in his older years, he says, the evils, the crimes that I've committed, I cannot lie down in my grave. So he speaks truth to power. He's talking about what he did, the games they played to force African countries to get loans to build a dam that should cost, for discussion purposes, 100 million. But he was encouraged to come up with figures to make that dam cost $1 billion. Ridiculous amounts. And then World Bank would come in and offer to fund that. And the rest of the money is pocketed. Now the country is stuck with $1 billion loan for something that should have cost 100 million. I encourage all of you to read that book, so you see the games that are being played. Now we know all that. Then why is it that our ministers of finance every year, twice a year, they go to the World Bank? They know what's going on, but they say nothing. What is keeping us as Africans from coming together and speaking with one voice and letting the World Bank know and the IMF that we have paid for these loans a gazillion times over? We aren't paying for them no more. What are they going to do? If Africa stood together and said this wrong must be righted, what are we afraid of? Why can't we just say it like it is? It is damn wrong. And it cannot continue. But we are afraid. You see, they defeated us where it matters the most. That even things that we have the ability to change, we are afraid of changing them. You see, when the Europeans first came to Africa, they brought us religion. We went to school. They taught us about the colors: orange, yellow, green, white. And then we went to church. And they taught us about a human being called Jesus Christ. And they talked about the angels, and they talked about who are in heaven, a place we all want to go to. They're beautiful, they're angelic, they're desirable. And oh, by the way, they're white. And oh, by the way, we are white, like the angels. But remember, in school, they told us this was white. But never mind how we look. We may look rather pinkish, but don't disregard that. We are white believers. Then they turned around and said there's something called hell. And there's a devil there, a mean creature, ugly, undesirable, does all the horrible things, and that creature is black. And oh, by the way, you too are black. Never mind this black color that we told you in school. And so it is. A blatant lie was told to us, and we have never stood up to say that's a damn lie. I'm not black. They're not white. But never mind. You look like the devil because we told you so. We look like the angels because we told you so. So it is when a little 5-year-old black boy is given 2 sets of dolls, black dolls and white dolls. And he's asked which one is mean, he points at the black one. He's asked which one is ugly, he points at the black one. He's asked which one is nice, he points at the white one. Which one is beautiful, he points at the white one. And then when asked which one is more like you, he sheepishly points at the black one. The 5-year-old boy is defeated before his life even begins. I can tell you there is no self-respecting mother, father, uncle, aunt who set this little boy down and said, you are black and you are ugly. But somehow, there are subliminal messages that this boy just knows it. Think about it. So that same little boy who grew up to be the Minister of Education, he's not going to like anything to do with him. So yes, European history is where it's at. African history? No. It is the same reasoning when I was asked to be a keynote speaker at the National Conference of African Educators. And what I learned that day was that African educators, you African educators, you don't read your own work in order to be tenured. Many professors, to be tenured, they got to write 10, 20, 30, 40 papers. And those papers can only be reviewed in Europe, in the United States, by credible universities. So I said to the professors, you don't trust each other? You are not credible? If you can't trust each other, why should we parents trust you with our children? To this day, unless things have recently changed, to be tenured in universities in Africa, your work has to be reviewed outside Africa. What's wrong with having universities in North Africa send their work to Southern Africa? Universities in West Africa send their work to East Africa. But no, black professors are going to be reviewing it. It's not acceptable. They won't have the same weight. Do you realize how sad and painful that is? To this day. And the professors are right here, so I'm going to go after you. Because this stupidity has got to come to an end. It is filtering through to everything that we are doing. I am telling you, my brothers and sisters, we are the laughingstock of the world. They know what they're doing to us is wrong. I was a speaker at one conference of journalists. And I asked, I said, why do you guys lie about Africa? Why do you publish stories that are blatantly wrong and you know it? And I still remember it was a journalist from CNN. He says, nobody challenges us. It's just that simple. Nobody challenges us. I can tell you, the current US ambassador to the United Nations, and I'm going to call her out. She was fired by President Trump when I was going to Washington. She used to come to my office, and she would say, Ambassador, talk to the ambassadors. They need to speak up. When she was the former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, she said, Ambassador, I'll be sitting on this side with the American side, and there'll be the Africans over there. She said, if they could just say some obvious things that would help her come back and make decisions and recommend certain changes. But the Africans don't speak. She said, tell these ambassadors to speak up. Why are we afraid? Because we were defeated where it matters the most, the man.
Wow, what a powerful speech by Dr. Arikana Chihombori Quao. Now, Dr. Chihombori Quao has emerged as a passionate and unwavering advocate for black emancipation, working tirelessly to bridge the historical and emotional gap between Africans and the African diaspora, particularly black Americans. As a medical doctor, diplomat, and Pan-African activist, her influence transcends borders and professions. One of her most profound contributions is her vocal stance in the lingering impact of colonialism and the Berlin Conference of 1884, which she often refers to as the beginning of Africa's fragmentation. Through her speeches and writing, she educates people of African descent about the deliberate strategies that disconnected them from their roots, emphasizing the importance of reclaiming that lost heritage as a path towards true liberation. During her tenure as the African Union Ambassador to the United States from 2017 to 2019, Dr. Chihombori Quao championed the cause of reconnecting the African diaspora with the continent. She spearheaded initiatives aimed at engaging black Americans in Africa's development, calling on them to see Africa not as a distant homeland, but as an integral part of their identity. Her Wakanda One project exemplifies this vision, a bold initiative to create African development hubs modeled after the technological and cultural ideas of a fictional Wakanda. This project was more than symbolic. It represented a real effort to encourage investment, repatriation, and mutual growth between Africa and its diaspora. Dr. Chihombori Quao also stands out for her unapologetic truth-telling. She has consistently called out neocolonial systems and the role of former colonial powers in Africa's underdevelopment. In doing so, she challenges Black people worldwide to look beyond surface-level freedoms and recognize the global systems that continue to oppress African nations and their descendants. Her directness resonates particularly with younger generations who are hungry for authenticity and a deeper understanding of their place in the global Black struggle. Through numerous interviews and public engagements, she fosters a sense of urgency and responsibility among African descents to engage with their history and play an active role in shaping Africa's future. Moreover, she has created safe intellectual spaces for discussing Pan-Africanism in ways that are inclusive and empowering. Her advocacy is not rooted in shame or guilt, but rather in pride, empowerment, and shared purpose. By framing Africa not as a problem, but as a potential rich homeland, Dr. Chihombori Quao redefines the narrative that many in the diaspora have been fed about the continent. Her efforts inspire a new vision of Africa as a land of opportunity, cultural richness, and historical depth, rather than the stereotypical images often perpetuated in Western media. Perhaps her greater legacy lies in her ability to awaken a sense of belonging in those who have been historically displaced. Dr. Chihombori Quao does not merely speak about Africa. She speaks to the hearts of people who have long felt the void of disconnection by urging Black Americans to embrace their African heritage not as outside, but as rightful heirs of a powerful legacy. She empowers them to reclaim their cultural identity with pride and purpose. Her work continues to ripple through communities, planting seeds of unity, consciousness, and transformation that promise to bear fruit for generations to come. I think the work that Dr. Chihombori Quao has done cannot be disputed. She's been very vocal in almost every platform that she gets. For example, she's been in many media interviews with Al Jazeera, with CNN, and many other global media stations, and she's been speaking quite candidly about the affairs affecting Black people. And that is why today as a channel we featured her and shared with you a clip where she speaks so passionately about the need for Blacks to come together. You can share your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you're watching us for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can also join our membership to get access to exclusive content we have here. Thank you, and let's meet on the next one.